Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time for a follow-up video to the one that I put out either this week or last week, depending on when I actually get this video uploaded. Basically just the last one that I did on this channel. In that video, I took a look at how every winner of the Euros dating back to 1960 fared at the World Cup after they won Europe's premier international competition, inspired by Italy's failure to reach the 2022 World Cup in Qatar in spite of winning the Euros just 8 months prior. And if you want to watch it, you can check out that video in the description. Of course, since only European and South American countries have ever won the World Cup, only the Euros and the Copa America will feature in this video. And as the Euros did not exist up until 1960, we will only be looking at the South American World Cup successes up to that point, which excludes Italy's successes in 1934 and 1938, and West Germany's shock triumph in 1954. I personally thought it would be interesting to see how well, or indeed how poorly, each World Cup winning team carried over their form into the next tournaments that they participated in. And if you do too, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, because it really does help me out and genuinely means the world. But without any further ado, let's have a look at how every World Cup winner fared at the next international tournament that they participated in. Uruguay at the 1935 Copa America. Winners. We are going in chronological order from least to most recent, meaning that we start all the way back in 1930 with the inaugural World Cup winners, Uruguay. They hosted that particular tournament and emerged victorious following a highly contentious final against their bitter rivals Argentina, and the fallout after that game was so drastic that it prevented the Copa America, then known as the South American Championship, from taking place until 1935, by which point Uruguay were no longer the World Cup holders. Nonetheless, this was the first major international tournament that Uruguay competed in after their World Cup victory, and in a 4-team group alongside Peru, Chile and Argentina, they came out on top. Poetically, not only was their final game against La Albiceleste, but it was also a winner-takes-all clash, and much like in 1930, Uruguay won it, this time with 3 first-half goals to pick up their 7th Copa America title up to that point. Uruguay at the 1953 Copa America, 3rd place. As mentioned at the start, Italy didn't have the chance to win a Euros trophy after their consecutive World Cup wins, as the Euros wasn't a thing at this stage. So as a result, we skip ahead to the first post-World War II World Cup, in which Uruguay stunned the host Brazil at the Maracanã to win 2-1 in the de facto final and lift the Jules Rimet trophy. 3 years later, just 4 members of the team that won the World Cup would compete at the 1953 Copa America, but despite the complete overhaul, they still managed to put in a decent showing and came in 3rd in the group stage. However, only the top 2 teams qualified for the final, and Uruguay were pipped to 2nd place after eventual champions Paraguay won their final group game against Brazil, meaning that La Celeste had to settle for bronze. Brazil at the 1959 Copa America, runners-up. Bypassing West Germany's 1954 success takes us to Brazil in 1958, who was spearheaded to the World Cup by midfield maestro Gigia, attacking fullbacks Nilton Santos and Djalma Santos, and, most notably of all, a 17-year-old forward by the name of Pelé. He burst onto the global stage in a way that no one else has managed to do so at his age either before or since, establishing his status as one of the best players, if not the best player, on the planet. And he backed this up at the following Copa America tournament in 1959, as he top scored with 8 goals. Sadly for the Seleção, it wasn't enough to see their team end up in a gold medal position, as despite going unbeaten across their 6 games, Argentina matched their feat, and following a 1-1 draw with Brazil in their final game, they won the tournament by just 1 point ahead of their rivals. Brazil at the 1963 Copa America, 4th. In spite of being deprived of the services of Pelé for most of the 1962 World Cup through injury, Brazil still won the tournament, with Garrincha taking up the mantle as the star of the show to inspire them to glory. However, in the following year's Copa America, their form took a complete nosedive, as they struggled to come to terms with the high altitude of Bolivia, where the tournament took place. They lost on 3 separate occasions, including a thrilling 5-4 reverse at the hands of the hosts, meaning that they ended in 4th place on just 2 wins and 5 points, and it would take until 1989 before they got their hands on another Copa America. England at Euro 68, 3rd. The year that football finally came home and when fans got onto the pitch thinking it was all over was of course 1966, when England tasted glory in the World Cup for the first, and sadly to date only time after a 4-2 extra time win over West Germany. The Three Lions backed this up with qualification to Euro 68, which at the time was still just a 4-team tournament, so it was nowhere near as easy a feat to qualify for the Euros as it is now. However, their semi-final against Yugoslavia would see Alan Mullery become the first Englishman to be sent off in an international match after he kicked Dobrivoje Trivic in the testicles, and Yugoslavia capitalised on their one-man advantage to win 1-0. Some solace came in the third place playoff, as a goal apiece from Bobby Charlton and Jeff Hurst secured a 2-0 victory over the USSR, so they came in third. Brazil at the 1975 Copa America semi-finals. Brazil had already been dethroned as World Cup champions by the time the Copa America that followed their dominant displays in Mexico in 1970 rolled around, owing to an 8-year gap between Copa America tournaments from 1967 until, as you might have guessed, 1975. Backing up one of, if not the, best tournament showings of all time was always going to be difficult, and after a subpar display at the 1974 World Cup, Brazil didn't even make the final of the 1975 Copa America, albeit through little fault of their own. They dominated a group containing Argentina and Venezuela, winning all 4 of their games, but in the semi-final against Peru, they lost the first leg 3-1 at home, but came back to win 2-0 in the return fixture. With the teams level on both goals scored and wins in their head-to-head record against each other, lots were drawn to determine which team went through to the final, and Peru quite literally received the luck of the draw to qualify at Brazil's expense and, as it transpired, win the competition altogether after a playoff against Colombia. West Germany at the 1976 Euros. Runners-up. West Germany had the chance to become the first team in international history to win a hat-trick of major international titles in 1976, after triumphing at the 1972 European Championships and following that up with success on home soil in the 1974 World Cup. It looked like they might make that dream a reality when they reached the final of Euro 76 after an extra time win against Yugoslavia in the semi-finals. However, they came unstuck against Czechoslovakia in the first penalty shootout in Euros history, with Uli Hoeneß skying his penalty miles over the bar to set up Antonin Panenka to immortalise himself with a delicate chip down the middle to win the Czechoslovaks their only major international honours. Weirdly enough, every game at Euro 76 went to extra time, including the third place playoff, a fact which has no bearing on this video whatsoever, but something I thought was somewhat worthy of bringing up. Argentina at the 1979 Copa America group stages. An extremely controversial choice to host the 1978 World Cup owing to the military junta who was in charge at the time, Argentina made use of their advantage to beat off their competition and win the tournament, albeit, allegedly it must be stressed, with a little help from those in higher power. They came crashing back down to earth very quickly though, as at the Copa America, which took place the following year, they could only muster 1 win from 4 games against Bolivia and Brazil to finish in last in their group. But their campaign would prove to be noteworthy as a result of the international tournament debut of a certain Diego Maradona, who scored his only goal of the competition in Argentina's only win of the competition, a 3-0 victory over Bolivia. Italy at Euro 84 failed to qualify. The first, and indeed only team in this video to fail to qualify for the next international tournament after they won a World Cup, albeit it is literally impossible for South American teams not to qualify for a Copa America unless they voluntarily choose not to participate. Italy had upset the odds, and indeed favourites Brazil, to pick up their 3rd World Cup title, and first since 1938, in Spain. Their star fell very quickly though, as in a Euros qualifying group containing Romania, Sweden, Czechoslovakia and Cyprus, they ended with just 1 win to their name, which came against Cyprus in their final game to ensure that they didn't finish last. They had drawn 3 games and lost the other 4, meaning that they could only accrue 5 points in a relatively easy group. Quite a come down. Argentina at the 1987 Copa America, 4th. Guided by Maradona to glory at the 1986 World Cup in Mexico, Argentina came into the 1987 Copa America, presumably brimming with confidence. Whilst they wouldn't be completely shattered, they certainly couldn't replicate their feats from the year prior when it came to South America's primary international competition, which probably would have knocked them somewhat. They came through a group with Peru and Ecuador with a win and a draw from their 2 games, but they succumbed to Uruguay by a goal to nil in the semi-finals, and they couldn't even secure a podium finish after Colombia beat them 2-1 in the 3rd place playoff. Germany at Euro 92, runners-up. Now, technically speaking, West Germany didn't actually have a follow-up tournament to their Italian 90 triumph, since by the time Euro 92 took place, they had reunified with East Germany to become Germany once more. But most people consider unified Germany to be the continuation of the West German national team, so I'm counting their Euro 92 displays for the purposes of this video. At the finals in Sweden, they were relatively unconvincing in the groups but managed to come in second behind the Netherlands before they overcame the hosts 3-2 in the semis to set up a clash with surprise package Denmark in the final. Famously, the underdogs stunned the Germans with a 2-0 victory thanks to the goals from John Jensen and Kim Vilfort, and they had to contend with a silver medal instead of the gold that many had expected them to receive prior to the match. Brazil at the 1995 Copa America, runners-up. Brazil's victory at USA 94, thanks in no small part to the goals of Bebeto and Romario and Roberto Baggio's skyward penalty in the final for Italy, is probably the least celebrated from a Brazilian perspective to this day, as their style of play wasn't as spellbinding or as awe-inspiring as it was in any of their other 4 World Cup successes. Nevertheless, it looked like they might win consecutive major international titles when they stormed through their 1995 Copa America group with 6 goals scored, none conceded, and 3 wins. However, after beating Argentina on penalties in the quarters and the USA 1-0 in the semis, the Seleção would experience penalty shootout heartbreak of their own in the final, as Tulio, their top scorer at the finals, missed his spot kick against Uruguay, who netted all of theirs to lift the trophy at Brazil's expense. France at Euro 2000, winners. What this video proves is just how difficult it is to win a selection of international trophies back to back, and France are the first team since Uruguay in 1930 and 1935 to manage to win the World Cup, followed by their continental equivalent. They thrashed Brazil 3-0 in the Stade de Paris to lift the first World Cup in their history in 1998, and prior to the first European Championships of the 21st century, they were immediately dubbed as one of the favourites. They actually finished second in their group behind the Netherlands, but after 2 consecutive 2-1 wins over Spain and Portugal in the knockouts, the latter via a golden goal, they needed a miracle in the final against Italy as they were 1-0 down with time fast running out. But boy oh boy did they get it, as Sylvain Wiltord struck just before time elapsed and David Trezeguet thundered home a close-range shot in extra time to add the Euros to their trophy cabinet by way of the golden goal rule. Brazil at the 2004 Copa America, winners. Well, just as I say how tough it is to win back-to-back international titles, especially back-to-back different international titles, 2 World Cup winning teams in a row managed to do exactly that. Brazil in 2002 are best remembered for the 3 Rs, Rivaldo, Ronaldinho and Ronaldo, lighting up the finals, as well as the first of those 3 falling like a sack of potatoes when Hakan Ünsal kicked the ball at his leg in their group stage clash against Turkey, and 2 goals from R9 saw them beat Germany in the showpiece event. 2 years later, they emerged victorious at the Copa America in Peru, although they had to rely on a penalty shootout in both the semi-final against Uruguay and the final against Argentina, with defender Juan netting the winner in the latter game. Italy at Euro 2008, quarter-finals. Despite the Calciopoli scandal unfurling around them throughout the 2006 World Cup, Italy put it all behind them to end up as champions of the tournament, no doubt aided in the final by a moment of madness from French maestro Zinedine Zidane, who headbutted Marco Materazzi and was sent from the field. At Euro 2008 in Austria and Switzerland, they were drawn in the group of death alongside the Netherlands, Romania and their World Cup final opponents of 2 years prior, but their displays weren't exactly convincing, although they beat France in the final game to secure their passage into the knockout stages. Unfortunately for them, they then came up against a Spain side who were seemingly possessed by some kind of destiny to win the tournament, and the Azzurri were eliminated via a penalty shootout. Those performances would be no way near as embarrassing as what was to come in South Africa, as they came last in a group containing Paraguay, New Zealand and Slovakia, failing to even win 1 game. And now look where they are. Spain at Euro 2012, winners. As I covered this period quite extensively in the last video, I'll keep this particular entrant to a minimum. But long story short, Spain made it a hat-trick of major international titles following success at the Euro 2008 and the 2010 World Cup, when they thrashed Italy 4-0 in the final of Euro 2012 thanks to goals from David Silva, Jordi Alba, Fernando Torres and Juan Mata. In the last 4 major tournaments though, they've only gone past the round of 16 once, showing how difficult it has been to rebuild the team once key players like Xavi, Andres Iniesta and Iker Casillas all retired from international duty. Germany at Euro 2016, semi-finals. The most notable moment of Germany's World Cup winning run in 2014 was undoubtedly a 7-1 pummeling of Brazil in the semi-finals, but Mario Götze's extra time goal in the final was enough to secure victory against Argentina. It was certainly the culmination of a decade's worth of rebuilding and recovery from the parlous state the country's football found itself in the early 2000s, but they couldn't replicate their World Cup form at Euro 2016, or at least not entirely anyway. They cruised through their group and the round of 16, and they beat the Italians via penalty shootout in the quarterfinals, but up against the host France in the semis, they got stage fright and lost 2-0. After that, things went completely stale under Joachim Löw, as a humiliating 2018 World Cup group stage exit was followed up by relegation in the Nations League, albeit that was later rescinded owing to a competition restructure, and then a 2-0 loss to England in Euro 2020's round of 16, and they will look to make amends under Hansi Flick at Qatar 2022. France at Euro 2020, round of 16. France's 2018 World Cup campaign, especially in the knockout stages, was as imperious as any I've seen in my lifetime, and it paid off when they won a thrilling final 4-2 against Croatia, which included a goal from a then teenage Kylian Mbappe, who became the first teenager to score in a World Cup final since Pelé managed it 60 years prior. With the wealth of squad depth at their disposal and many of their players only getting better and better, it seemed as though Euro 2020 would be a breeze for them, but they struggled in the group of death, relying on an own goal to beat Germany and then drawing with both Hungary and Portugal. Facing Switzerland in the round of 16, they went 3-1 up with 15 minutes to go and looked to be sailing through, but the Swiss fought back to tie the game up in the last minute, and Mbappe went from hero to zero as he missed his penalty in the subsequent shootout to see his nation crash out much earlier than many, not least I, anticipated. And that just about wraps up today's video, looking at how every single World Cup winner fared at their next Continental tournament. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And you can ring the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a video straight away. And if you have any more stupid or ridiculous or just interesting ideas, either one of those three is perfectly fine by me, that could be turned into a video, let me know down in the comments below and I'll do my best to make them happen. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I will see you then.